and welcome back to episode 2. This one's going to be kind of going over like my other YouTube video. So if you haven't gone and watched that, it's why I sold my R3, or kind of why I sold it. Again, I'll reiterate on a few things, but in this episode we're going to cover essentially Canon in a nutshell, and just what I don't agree with that they're doing as a company, and just the direction they're heading. Okay, so again, this is more podcast style. Welcome back to Rants and Drives, and yeah, just chat it up. Grab your favorite energy drink. I have a Dr. Pepper with me, so that we're going to be sipping on that bad boy. If you're not a Dr. Pepper fan, what are you doing? And why haven't you joined the cult? Just kidding, it's not a cult. I don't think it is anyways. But yeah, grab a cup of coffee. Let's get into it. Alright, so first things first, if you're not aware, we'll recap kind of what happened in the R3 video and the absurdity of comments I've gotten, and we'll cover that first. And then we'll just kind of get into the direction of where Canon's headed. So, first of all, to recap everything, I sold my R3. This is not new news. That video is almost a year old now. I think it's on 8 or 9 months. It's been a hot minute. And I'll just reiterate pretty much what I said. I had 2 gripes with the camera, and they weren't deal breakers per se, but they're a big reason of why I got rid of it. So, but first of all, the R3 is a phenomenal camera. Okay, let's just, I even said this in the video. I literally went over all the reasons of why it's a phenomenal camera. The autofocus is phenomenal. It's one of Canon's best autofocusing cameras. Obviously, they have the R1 and R5 Mark II out now, so I'm sure from what I've seen anyways, they're much better, which how you improved on that, I don't know. But yeah, phenomenal autofocus. It wasn't one of my complaints. Also, it's a beast of a camera. I don't think I ever got it to overheat, and one of the weddings that I shot was the feels like temperature was right around 112. So yeah, it's a beast of a camera. So I don't understand why people are like, oh, why'd you buy it if you hate the camera? I'm like, I don't hate it. I literally said that so many times in that video that I don't hate the camera. It's a great camera. So the 2 things that I griped over it for was it did not have C-Log 2, and that it's just a firmware update. And the R5 Mark II and the R1 coming out with C-Log 2 is proof that the R3 could easily have C-Log 2 very easily. So it just kind of proved my point even more. It's a log profile, people. It's just a picture profile. That's it. Some people were arguing in the comments that there's this massive scientific reason of why it can't do it. No, because in a technicality, it can do it. If you shoot in RAW, you can shoot in RAW with C-Log 2. Ta-da. You get to use that color space and log profile to shoot, record, what have you. So when people keep snapping at me in the comments going oh well, there's all these scientific reasons, there's not. There really isn't. I get it, you're brand loyal, that's cool, fun and dandy and whatnot, but I'm not brand loyal, and that keeps my mind open to seeing that other camera companies can do things better. They can. I haven't tested the new to the R1 and R5 Mark II. so I can't speak to those cameras, but I can tell you my Sony a7R5 does have better autofocus than the R3. Does that make the R3 trash? No, it does not. Does it make my a7R5 superior in every way? No, it does not. So when people just like, you disagree with them in like one part, they just like lose their crap. I am not saying that the R3 is a bad camera, okay? All I'm saying is my autofocus in my a7R5 is better. And it works better for me. And that was in real world scenarios. I used my Canon R3 in tons of weddings. I shot at least 20 weddings with that camera, bare minimum, including a few commercial projects here and there, as well as tons of photos and video. Like, so I know what I'm talking about. Like, I used this camera, it was my workhorse. So when people try to bicker with me and be like, oh, well, it's not that and it's not that, be quiet if you don't have one. If you've never owned one or never used one, you don't get to have a say. I'm speaking from experience, people. Like, I'm not pulling these things out of my butt. I used the camera extensively. It was like my workhorse, okay? Anyways, my other gripe was it didn't have a full-size HDMI. Is it the end of the world? No. Is it a big enough deal to make a complaint about? Yes. Why? Because both of the new cameras have a full-size HDMI. So if the R1 has a big enough footprint to stick a full-size HDMI in it, and the R5 Mark II has enough space in it to put a full-size HDMI in it, then so does the R3. So when people are like, oh, well, it's not designed for that. Okay, then what's the R1 designed for? No one seems to have an answer all of a sudden. Because it's like, we'll use this as a transition to get into why I feel like Canon is heading the wrong direction. It's the typical Canon cripple hammer. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, look through Canon's history of cameras. Like, they have been top dog ever since the DSLR came out. Like, ever since the 5D dropped, which, phenomenal camera, yet again. Revolutionized, like, the entire industry. And for good reason. Like, you could do video for the first time in a DSLR body and take photos with the same body. Like, revolutionary, again. Like, this isn't new news. So, but in my opinion, ever since then, they've just dominated the market. It's been theirs. And they've had to not really fight anyone in that market. Nikon still took great photos, but when it came to video-wise, it was very much lacking, for lack of better words. It was terrible. Video just wasn't really their thing. And so, and I don't knock that against them. Like, photography-wise, great cameras, phenomenal glass. Like, that's that. But, like, Canon just dominated. There was no competitors. And they've never really had to compete with anyone. So when they made a better camera, and the one that's supposed to be below it, they would cripple it. Like, and they would make sure that they sold cinema cameras, and that those two, like, cinema and photography, never crossed over, and they kept them separate. And I get it, it's for money reasons. Like, yeah, you do you. But now we're in a time where you can't really do that anymore. You have competition. That is not just Sony, okay? I know I'm a Sony user now, but I've also used Fujifilm. I've used Leica. I've used, I've used Canon. Owned well over $25,000 worth of Canon gear. So when I bash these companies, I'm not just saying it or pulling things out of nowhere. It's, I've used it. This is user experience. I will not tell you something's bad if I have not used it. I will, like give you all the information that I know of to help you make an educated decision and stuff like that. But I always research the crap out of everything. And so when people were ragging on me and be like, well, why did you buy the R3 if it didn't meet these needs? You should have done research. Keep in mind, like, I bought that camera on release. So there were a lot of things that just weren't out yet. Like the R5C it did not exist. Wasn't a thing. And at the time I was also doing almost more photo than video, but I was still filming full weddings and stuff. So like I needed a very powerful like photography camera, but just as powerful video camera. And like I said, I had the R5 as well. I had to sell it. It just overheated. It would not make it through an entire wedding day down in Florida. Just, it is what it is. It's hot as crap down here, okay? We have humidity, so like, even if you went into the shade, you just can't escape the heat. There are certain parts of Texas that know what I'm talking about. It's just, it is what it is. It's hot, okay? So, I didn't hate the R5 for overheating. It was frustrating, so I ended up getting rid of that. And I bought a C70 because I was not new to, like, I don't know, I guess the cinema world, but the camera had been out for a while. A bunch of my friends who owned it highly recommended it. Thanks Mitch, Lance, and Scott. So I bought it. And quickly found out how much better C-Log 2 is from C-Log 3. That was kind of like the holy crap, this is why every cinematographer prefers C-Log 2. Like, you get a decent amount more dynamic range, and the colors, the skin tone colors are way better, like noticeably. You don't really even have to do much to the log profile to notice, like, hey, this is just better than C-Log 3. Not saying C-Log 3 is like the worst thing in the world, but the moment you go from C-Log 3 to C-Log 2, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's just a better file, period. So, anyways, moving on, like, those things I noticed them to where when it was a video, like when I was shooting video for wedding, I would grab my C70 over the R3. Yes, I understand because it's a video camera, but it's because it had C-Log 2. It just looks better. It really does. So when it comes to filming people, I want them to look as best they can. And if it means easier straight out of camera, then I'm doing that. And C-Log 2 was that answer. So me being frustrated about how a $6,500 camera that is at the time Canon's top of the line camera doesn't have C-Log 2, like, why? There was no excuse, no rhyme or reason. It was just, we don't want it to cross over and hurt our cinema stuff. It's as simple as that, people. It really is. Like, and here's how I say it's as easy as that. When S-Cinetone came out, it was not in the A7S III. And that was a much older camera, so I kind of understood. But it was a very popular video camera for Sony. So the A1 came out and it had S-Cinetone, and I think there was another camera that came out, but then there was a software update. And your A7S III now got S-Cinetone. And from that, like, it just tells me, okay, if they wanted to, they would. And they can. So it's not that they just, like, wouldn't want to give it to you. It's that they could give it to you. It just hurts sales for other cameras. And Sony is... So this is one reason why I jumped to Sony, is they just give it to you anyways. They don't care. It's just... I've noticed that a lot of their profits, yes, do come from cameras, but they get a lot of profits from other things, so they're not reliant on camera sales. So they give you everything that there is anyways. because they're making money elsewhere. So that was like a huge thing I noticed, is that when people were asking, hey, I would like this in this camera, they go, okay, and they stick it in there. Like, here's a prime example. The ZV-E1 is literally a baby A7S III. It really is. It does everything that camera does. Literally everything. The only two flaws, that's it, that it has is it overheats, obviously, because it's a smaller body, and it has one card slot. That's it. Everything else it has. It even has a better autofocus because it has the AI chip in it. So it's one of those things that like Sony just dumps it all in there. Canon does not do this at all. And it's a little frustrating. Now, keep in mind, when it comes to more affordable, like budget cameras, like I'm not looking for the R10 to have C-Log 2 or the R7. I get it. It's your budget APS-C camera. It's more affordable. Okay, I'm not expecting anything sub 2K to have C-Log 2. I'm not. And that's fine. So if you don't want to put it in there, okay, don't do it. But if I'm dropping over 4K, I don't understand why I don't have C-Log 2. Like, why is it not in there? Like, did I not give you enough of my money to have that feature? Like, it's just frustrating. Now, I think they're starting to see, and I think they're losing sales in a lot of it, because the R5 Mark II and the R1 both got full-size HDMIs, which was literally everyone's biggest complaint from Canon. They're like, I want full-size HDMI. They finally did it. And I say finally because people have been asking that for a hot freaking minute, dude. For a long time. And they finally gave C-Log 2. And I think it's because genuinely they're losing sales and they need people back. And people are just upset because these two cameras are supposed to be like groundbreaking. And while they're better, like, yes, I get they are better, they are improvements, there's just nothing groundbreaking. And like, as users, we've been waiting a long time. I know I'm not going to get everything in the kitchen sink. That's fine. I get it. Like, you can only put so much into certain cameras, and not every camera's made for everyone. But like, the R1 doesn't make sense. I'm just going to put that out there. It doesn't make any sense to me. Because your R3 does 90% of what your R1 does. To me, that's not worth dropping that much more money. You've had so much time to develop, like research and develop new tech to put in here. And there's like nothing. Like, you made improvements on things that honestly should have already been there. So to me, when I see a full-size HDMI and C-Log 2, I'm not counting those as upgrades because they should have already been there. So it's frustrating to me when people like defend Canon like that and be like, oh, well, like, there's this and there's that, and you draw up excuses. I get it because you're heavily invested. I was too. But it's no excuse. It really is not. You should be mad. Just like I was with Canon. Like, these are inexcusable. They really are. There's no excuses why you can't be putting more into your cameras. Like, you've had a lot of time, and the R1 is just a cleaned up R3. It really is. Like, there's even still features in the R3 that are not in the R1. Like the whole, 100 and something raw photos in a second. Like, That's not in the R1. I know that's a software update they could throw in there, but as of right now, it's not there. So what's the big deal? The only thing that I can think of and like scrape up that the R1 can do that the R3 cannot, it says photos during video. I don't know how that works yet. I have not had a chance to mess with it, nor do I think I'll ever have the opportunity to really mess with it because I'm not a Canon user anymore. I still have some Canon glass because my wife still shoots Canon, but I don't know if I'm interested enough, to be honest with you. Like, when I look at the feature set compared to what I had in the R3, I'm not wowed. I'm really not. I'm really not excited or anything like that. The one thing that is exciting me right now that I would love to like try out is the A9 III. I would love to get my hands on a global shutter just to see like the limitations. Like, what is it significantly better? Obviously it has caveats. I know it's not perfect, but like, will it fit my workflow? Will it make things better? Like, I want to find those things out. So I'm not going to say like it's a better thing and like you should buy that instead. I know a lot of people have been loving it, but I haven't used it. So I can't give you an opinion on that. That's about all I can say on that. But I can also say that it's innovative enough and there's enough stuff in it that I'm excited to try it. I want to try it. I want to see what it's about. That's not what I get when I look at Canon's new lineup, the R5 Mark II and the R1. Like, if your only big stepping stones that everyone keeps talking about are A, features that we already should have had, like, again, the HDMI and C-Log 2, and the other thing is autofocus, which I feel like is kind of like a gimme. Like, yes, I hope you should be improving your autofocus, because if you don't, your competitor will take over. Like, duh. I don't know. I'm just not excited about it. And I just want to tell you people, whoever's listening to it this far, like, be open-minded. If your camera company that you are invested in, and it's a lot of money, like, you should be getting the features you want. Like, if 4K 120 or 6K 120, obviously I know that's not a real feature right now, but like 6K 120, let's just say that's a feature you're like, I would love this and it would benefit me. Like, start pushing for it. And if other companies start doing it and the company you're currently invested in is not, jump ship. It's not worth it, because they don't value you as a customer and they're not valuing what you need, and another company is. And that's why I'm not brand loyal anymore. It's just like, as much as I'm enjoying Sony right now, if per se, I don't know, freaking Lumix comes out with like groundbreaking stuff that works better for how I work, guess what? We're jumping ship. We're moving over, because that's my hard-earned money, and I want somebody who's investing back into me what I'm investing into them. I'm giving you thousands of dollars, like tens of thousands. So if I'm investing that much money into my gear, they should be putting the features that I need back into it. Like, give me the stuff that I want. I'm the one buying it. Like, I don't know. That's essentially my rant for today. I have to get that off my chest. Again, like, pick the company that's best for you. On this next one, we're going to be chatting about, like, best beginner cameras. So if that applies to you, or you think that might apply to somebody that you know, send it to them. Anyways, like, subscribe for more of these. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. You have an amazing day at work. God bless you. And I'll see you on the next one. Peace.